I'm resident of Collinwood, Joel Sands for YouTube. I'm joined by the three most wanted men on YouTube. Butch Rosenbalm, who's number one on that list, my buddy Butch Rosenbaum, my buddy Patrick McCray, and my buddy Gordon Dymowski. We're here to discuss a movie called Circle of Iron, recommended by our buddy Patrick McCray here. So, Patrick, I watched this movie.
Yes.
Why did you recommend it?
Because it's good. I mean, that's the it kind of makes its own gravy in that sense. Yeah, it's a great movie. It's not like I recommended Arthur 2 on the Rocks. That would be a problematic choice. I don't remember what we were talking about because there's so many things that it connects to. I remember Gordon was talking about Robert E. Howard, and that led to Conan the Barbarian. And even though this movie was made, I believe, before Conan the Barbarian, visually, especially at the beginning, it really feels like it shares kind of the Big Lots neighborhood of the Conan universe. It's like the Powell for Knoxvillians of Samaria. And so it's but visually it has that Ron Cobb sort of feel to it. And I don't think Cobb was influenced by this movie, or Cobb and the production designer of this were both influenced by the same things. But and then it's got the Christopher Lee connection, and then for just sheer martial arts brutality, it's got the Rowdy Roddy McDowell connection. Because I know you like, action stars and wrestling and men who grapple other men. And so Roddy McDowell, of course. And so that comes into it. What? I don't understand.
And it's got crucifixion for the kids.
It's got who? Christopher Hitchens?
Crucifixion.
Oh, it's got a crucifixion for the kids. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And so it's an unusual and fun movie, and Bruce Lee helped write it along with James Coburn, who was originally supposed to play Cord. I guess he was supposed to play Cord when Bruce was alive. I assume Bruce would have played the monk. Before David Carradine did it, and of course David Carradine, we miss him. And when we think about how he died, we think of the moment in heaven that his father is finally proud of him. But anyway, that one hurt. That one got to Butch pretty hard. I'm sorry. But anyway, he's hanging around somewhere, and and you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh. I kind of strung things up there, but don't choke. But here's the thing: it's a very good movie. It's a thoughtful movie. It's a bad movie in certain ways. It's one of these things where, like Flash Gordon, where you have some really fine actors all gathering to surround a terrible actor. I took a still during the movie of Eli Wallach in the oil tub, which, by the way, is a scene that was not in the original screenplay. They just kind of threw it in. Eli Wallach doing this, and Jeff Cooper standing next to him expectantly. And I think the caption read something like,
the irony of that scene,
okay,
the reason why it was not the original script, one day Eli Wallach just showed up in a tub full of oil.
That's a joke that I made earlier tonight when I was watching it. I said they just happened upon Eli Wallach on vacation in Israel in a tub of oil. That's all real dialogue. As I was saying, on the caption in the picture is Eli Wallach and Jeff Cooper's there. It says, Jeff Cooper's attempt to get notes after his audition met with familiar silence. It was something like that. Jeff Cooper is wonderfully terrible. He is a guy who does, I believe, his own acting, but it sounds like bad looping. It's amazing. It's a performance so bad it should have come from Italy. and with the bad looping and all that. You know how they shot a movie in Italy? This is true. Do you know about this? They had everybody talking at once. They had the crew talking, everybody speaking different languages because everything was looped for different countries. So there you go. That's what happened. So anyway, so it's a good movie. It's, pardon? Sure, you can. Yeah. What do we got?
There were 2 lemons on top of the refrigerator.
Really?
May I use one of them for that sweet tea?
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Do whatever you like.
Thank you so much.
And that's why I like Circle of Iron.
Cool. There's something I noticed about this movie, and I want to get Butch's take on this because you and I did an episode of Kung Fu for our Western series, and you had mentioned, and we both brought it up about how people think that Bruce Lee had something to do with Kung Fu. After watching this movie, I could see why. And the reason, now he didn't, to be clear. That's something me and Butch settled when we did our episode. He didn't, but David Carradine in this movie, I'm not saying he's playing the character from Kung Fu, but he's playing it sort of similar to the character from Kung Fu a bit.
You know what he's playing? He's playing a character that Kane would have read about as a child.
Yeah.
In, Monkey King like parables and so on and so forth. It's kind of like if you look at the movie The Prestige and The Illusionist. The Illusionist is a story that the characters in The Prestige would have read in their time off. And so this almost is a meta story or an anti-meta story that could very easily be a piece of fiction. It's like a long Easter egg inside the TV show Kung Fu.
Butch?
Yeah, David Carradine is playing a trickster, in my opinion, and in the classic definition, where the trickster is teaching the character something. In this case, teaching them several things. But yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with what Patrick just said. I could see Kwai Chang Kang going, "Oh, okay, yeah."
My God, you know what this is? This is Dr. Lowe, the early years. This is a very Dr. Lowe-like character. I mean, I could see this monk in his retirement coming to America to do teaching and taking on the guise of Dr. Lowe. And I wish I knew more about Asian studies, so I knew if this were an archetype.
He could be the person that taught Dr. Lowe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gordon, what's your thoughts?
What's my thoughts? I thought it was a pretty good movie. I think first I have to agree, the guy playing Cord, not exactly the best choice.
He's perfectly bad though. I mean, it would almost be off if he were good.
Yeah, I mean his martial arts pose with like, he looked like he looked like he's got a cat just like kind of decided to stick its claws in his rear end. But I think that's
a fighting style.
Yeah, I think it's one of those movies that I think sometimes the script got a little. The story's great, but I think the script was a little too. Because the script was written after Lee died. So it has some of that kind of fortune cookie kind of, some of the lines are a little, yes.
Portentous. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I do think it's, I think the one really cool sequence was the one with Death, where they just they did night shooting with a colored filter, because it made it look really weird. And then you've got David Carradine in a cat suit, and I'm just going to leave that there because Patrick's already made those tasteless jokes. I'm not going to say anything more about that. But no, you can also tell that they had Roddy McDowell for a day, they had Christopher Lee for a day, so it's like, okay, let's put him at the front of the film because hey, if they get credit, they get a little bit of extra money for their mortgage payment. So, yeah, I thought it was okay. I don't think it's a good martial arts movie simply because it's if you're watching it for that, yeah, you're going to be disappointed. If you're watching it as kind of this weird late 70s kind of hippie, have a few joints and kind of mellow out, except for Cord, you look at his face and he's like a splash of cold water, because he's got the Neo Conan thing on when everyone else is wearing climate appropriate clothing. His face looks like he's just come off a meth binge.
He also made me think several times. He reminded me of a singer by the name of Ronnie James Dio, who I was in several heavy metal bands, most notably Black Sabbath, and it was just like Ronnie James Dio's a bit taller brother or something. One thing I kept thinking of while watching this for the second time. First time I saw it was at Patrick's house around 20 years ago. This made me think of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
Yeah.
It is a journey. It's learning, if you will, in a role-playing game term, he's gaining levels each time. And it's about defeating the guy at the end. It's growing as a person and learning these things and moving forward. As Gordon said, it's a piss poor, martial artist movie. If you're looking for Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, no. Philosophy wise, yeah, you're going to get you'll get more out of it.
It's a movie that I do a bunch of different cycles of cinema classes, and I have one called Age of Heroes, and it's one that I always show in that as a kind of philosophical action movie. And I will say this, it passes the cynical teenager test. They all agree that it's goofy, and it is, but it's also good. It has a lot of heart. It's a very sincere movie, and it has enough variety in it that just when you sort of, okay, it's doing this is what, now it's on to something else. And on a low budget, it gives you a lot of sweep, and I like that. It's very serious movie in some ways. It even when it's being lighthearted about itself and laughing heartily at the folly of man, it still is doing so with sort of this drive-in late night drive-in projection room profundity, which I know very well and can be very profound. And that makes some of the campy moments even funnier. And there was a moment that I saw tonight where the editing was very strange. So there is the large oiled gentleman that Cord witnesses David Carradine fight when he's in the sort of caravan pimp mode. You know that? Mm-hmm. The man in the red diaper, the diaper that he this enormous muscle man. And the movie becomes unintentionally homoerotic in a very embarrassing way, because the way the shots and so all of the seriousness makes that even funnier, because Cord is just kind of like sitting on the ground by the tent waiting to be invited in or something. He just shows up in this guy's caravan and sits down. And Tara, David Carradine's ninth wife, walks by and gives him all these significant glances as this, sort of fake Morricone is sawing on in the background. And Cord kind of looks at her and goes back to his thing. Then the large muscle man walks by and looks at Cord, and Cord looks at him. And it's at that point Cord gets up and follows him into the tent. Well, okay, Cord. Nice to meet you. And so all of the seriousness, because we've just seen Eli Wallach in his attempt to turn the Magnificent Seven into the pitiful 1.5. You like that one? I've stored that one for a while. And then we walk into that. So there we go.
Oh my God. Now, Jeff Cooper.
Joel, you're choking up like David Carradine. Anyway.
Yeah, Jeff Cooper in this movie, he's very muscular. He looks like he should be out of a Conan the Barbarian movie. Not just the way he's dressed, but his physique.
Well, yeah, working the concession stand.
Yeah, but here's the thing too. Are they casting somebody who's, in a sense, not known enough to not give it too much of a Hollywood feel? Because David Carradine, Eli Wallach, Sir Christopher Lee, that's pretty Hollywood-esque.
Yeah,
that's where the budget went.
Yeah. The background to this movie is when they were ready to film, they were looking for money, and Warner Brothers, who's a distributor, noticed that they had money allocated for productions in India that was not spent, and they couldn't take that money and like bring it to the States, so they had to go to India to use that money up. So that's why probably with the budget, it's like, okay, we need to have some names. So we'll get Roddy McDowall, we'll get Christopher Lee, because that, we get them for a day, we pay off their mortgage. They probably got David Carradine, because there's that obvious kung fu connection, but he's also a name. He's maybe a second tier actor in terms of, he's not a big box office draw, but people know who he is. So they got this guy out of Canada, Cord out of Canada.
Oh, he's Canadian?
Yeah, he's Canadian.
Oh boy.
Which explains better. Why he looks like, and I got to differ on that whole he could appear in Conan, because it's like, it'd be like he'd walk up to Conan and say, "Hey, I will take you on." Conan, bam, he hits the ground. Conan walks away. He's a wuss. I'm sorry.
Conan would have handed him the keys to the chariot and said, bring it back in good shape. Two
coats.
He wouldn't. I want 2 coats.
2 coats and 2 pair of pants.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, they can't put James Coburn in this movie.
Well, he was old and racked with arthritis by the time they made this.
That's what I'm meaning. They can't put him in this movie. So why not? Here's an alternate suggestion. Why not put Chuck Norris in this movie?
Because Chuck Norris was not a name at that time. He was better. Let me rephrase that. He is probably better known for working with Bruce Lee and being on the way up than he was being a star. And I also think with this movie, the way that if this had meant to be more of a martial arts film and less on the philosophy, then you stick in Chuck Norris. But because it's probably more because they wanted to have that, it's not really the whole idea of this movie was to serve as a primer for Bruce Lee's philosophy of fighting. That there is no way that you, and it's more about putting in Lee's philosophy. So you probably, if this were the 60s, you'd have Coburn as Cord, you'd have Bruce Lee as the monk, as we've suggested. At this point, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you have Norris in it, it then becomes a little bit more on the martial arts side, not the philosophy side. Here, it's like but they went with the Canadian, so it's kind of like it doesn't really have that. It's like the philosophy is more than the martial arts. You could easily have this guy have his ass handed to him in every fight.
Look within you, Hoser. Yeah.
According to IMDb, James Coburn never watched this film. He refused to, because he really disliked the way they rewrote the script.
Mm-hmm.
Really? I'd love to see the original screenplay. It's probably floating around somewhere.
Gotta be.
Where it was shot under the name of The Silent Flute.
God.
And so I was wondering what it'd be like if he had a sousaphone instead of a flute, and he was kind of trying to attack people with that elegantly. I don't think it would work as well.
Well, when they cast Jeff Cooper, were they looking for somebody with a physique or what?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell because you've got a little data like through Wikipedia and IMDb, but you're talking about a film that's 40, 50 some years old, and you're not going to necessarily get the depth of information that you will in current movie things. So why they hired him? Probably it was just, okay, we need a guy who looks good in a loincloth, has hair, and who looks like he needs his ass kicked. There you go.
Now I know they were going to shoot it briefly with as Cord and as the monk, Don Knotts and Howard Hessman.
That was only some test footage. That was only test footage.
That fell through. Shirley Hemphill was Tara, and that was a version. It's the forbidden reel of silent flute. That's silent but deadly flute.
We get some really good scenery in this movie. I like all the locations they use. Really, really cool film to watch. I enjoyed watching. It's actually
great looking movie.
It is. It's a good movie.
Great nature stuff, caves, really cool caves and things that have wonderful sound. It's a really interesting sounding movie.
My favorite scenes in this movie are the cave, and when Cord's at night and the cat, the death or cat appears and it's David Carradine in a cat outfit, but it's creepy as shit.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
I just love that we had a reason to say David Carradine in a cat outfit with no irony. I also thought of this, Jeff Goldblum in Circle of Irony.
I was watching this and my wife sat down and she would look up every so often, and the first fight with the monkeys, she's like, what is the deal with the monkeys? And I was like, and I said, you had Roddy McDowall in this film. You had to have monkeys. It's contractual. And of course, she just looked at me.
I could see McDowell reading the script and not reading like the intro pages and thinking, "Hey, you're not getting me in that damn makeup." No. Read page 1. Oh, okay. I play a guy. I just kind of sit and okay, that means I can get liquored up the night before and just do my scene and move some rocks around and I'm fine.
Do you know what? Roddy McDowall is notorious for two things.
Keep it clean, Patrick. Keep it clean.
I am. Both of them are reportedly two of the largest, but one of them was the largest illegal or semi-black market legitimate 35 millimeter movie collections in Hollywood. And when I guess the FBI or something was finally cracking down on that, because it was a big deal to own a 35 millimeter print, and you really weren't supposed to that often. I think Roddy absolutely just sang like Beverly Sills. He just ratted on everybody to get himself out of trouble. He was also a hell of a photographer.
The FBI, they weren't busy doing anything else either. They didn't have to look for DB Cooper. Who the fuck cared?
I think they just like Planet of the Apes movies. They came up with an excuse to hang around Roddy McDowall. Roddy's a fun guy. Take their picture.
Also in this movie, I love how Eli Wallach's in the oil. Sir Christopher Lee is
not in the oil.
The fact that he doesn't fight in this movie is interesting because, after watching The Three Musketeers and him do that awesome sword fight with D'Artagnan, holy shit.
Well, the way the role he serves in the film, I think, is the kind of final lesson for Cord, because it's not just the book with the mirrors. It's that Christopher Lee says, "Hey, you did the same thing I did when I came here. It's your job to now be the keeper of the book."
He's having none of it.
Yeah, and Cord realizes that the whole lesson isn't about, oh, he's in charge of this treasure. It's, if he's responsible for his own enlightenment, he's going to go off. And I'm sure that Christopher Lee, it was the same deal. It's like one day shooting, he's not going to be like, he's like, no, I'm not fighting. Okay. At best, you better have my tea and my scones ready at 3. Then I will kick your ass. And I'll call my buddy Peter Cushing, and we're going to whomp you.
Oh my God, poor Peter.
Don't bring up.
Grimsdyke. I was just watching that last night, and it's just heartbreaking. Really heartbreaking. Anyway, Christopher Lee has one of the funniest lines in the movie, legitimately, where Cord says, "So is now when we fight?" I forgot what Lee says. He says something like, "Do you want to fight? I guess. Why would we fight? I mean, we can fight if you like, but yeah, it's that to me was the most mature line I have ever heard spoken in a martial arts movie. Like, I guess we could fight."
And this is why this film is not a martial arts film. If it were, there would be a 10, 15, 20-minute fight between them, switching the stances. And that's why this is a philosophy film, for just the reason you just said. Well, okay, if you want to fight, because it's not about the fighting, where a martial art is about the fighting.
And that is one of the most satisfying climaxes to a movie I've ever seen. Because it's a bolt of common sense. It's almost like, oh God, we don't have to sit through another fight. Yeah, I wish Marvel movies would do that. Yeah, instead, let's just talk briefly but incisively about something important.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say this about the fight sequences in this movie and the choreography. It's still better than the choreography in any AEW match, because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Anyway, I actually do like the fight sequences in this movie. They're really put together. They're well done, despite Jeff Cooper's, lack of whatever. But I do enjoy it. It's really fun to watch. And my favorite, obviously, fight sequence is David Carradine and Jeff Cooper near the end of the movie. Really, David Carradine playing more than one role is a delight in any movie.
Yeah. Carradine knew martial arts. He knew what he was doing, and so it's nice to get to see him do it again.
Yeah. Well, he was still doing kung fu by this point, wasn't he?
Oh,
He was off the air for a few years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And actually, according to the internet, the reason Kung Fu ended is he couldn't take the damage anymore. It was just too much on his body for the fight sequences and the action sequences. So it's kind of interesting, roughly 5 years later, he's making this film, but that's 5 years of recovery.
Yeah, and plus, their stunt coordinator might have been really careful to go, okay, let's set this up so that blows, you shoot it so that blows don't really land, and it looks a lot more dangerous than it is.
It's not TV. On TV, in that era, you're doing your own stunts. You're doing them on concrete, and you have to shoot a lot of them a day, and or at least a lot of them a week. In this case, they have a lot of time to plan them. They have time to plan every shot meticulously, especially if Carradine is your star, and especially if your star has had that experience. You're gonna make sure David looks good and has the sort of fight scenes he wants. The physical damage is why Louis Rukeyser quit Wall Street Week. It was the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a television show called The Rockford Files, starring James Gardner, and James Gardner had talked about how the reason he quit doing it is because of the physical stunts dealt damage to his body. He was doing a lot of the stunts. Mm-hmm. So I get what you're saying, and that was like 70s too. So
it did him a lot of damage.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, a lot of actors in the heyday probably did a lot of their own stunts. There's a Western movie called The Sons of Katie Elder. John Wayne, coming off cancer, does some of his own stunts. But with this movie,
James-
sorry. go
No,
ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, James Garner also did a punishing series of Polaroid ads with Marriott Hartley, and she was relentless.
Yeah,
him.
it was total blood sport. It was ugly.
It was the inspiration for Mortal Kombat.
Oh, wait,
Yeah.
have you ever seen the movie Bloodsport?
Sure,
Good movie.
sure. Every Purim.
The movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme, you saw it?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I saw it on a double bill with Van Damlet, which was his Shakespeare film.
Yeah. We bring all my cousin's kids together. We brew them a pot of black coffee. We stay up until 2 a.m. and we just watch that movie over and over again.
At the movie theater, I would take the Sound of Music, and I would intersperse the reels. I'd have a reel of Bloodsport, a reel of Sound of Music, and after a while, it just became one really intense narrative.
And the funny thing is, if you watch Bloodsport backwards, you start with the last scene and watch it backwards. It's a shot-for-shot remake of The Sound of Music.
The hills die with the sound.
You should
of
do that,
silence.
Joel. Watch it backwards. I'm not kidding.
Sport blood.
No.
Anyway, Jewel, tell us about Bloodsport.
Here's a great question for you guys. Not about this movie. What's the better Street Fighter movie, the live action movie or the animated movie?
I've seen neither of them. I will have to be schooled by you in this.
As much as I love Jean-Claude Van Damme, the animated movie is a lot better.
Yeah.
The animated.
Yeah.
Overall, I will agree.
You said that about Downton Abbey.
I did.
The animated movie is way better. It's a way better story. Bison's more of a menace in the movie. No offense to the actor who played Bison in the live action movie, because he's a great actor.
Raul Julia?
Yeah, he's a great actor. That was his
Man.
last movie. That was close to his last movie.
That was his last movie, I think.
Oh, was it? Yeah, great actor, and he plays Bison to a T. But the anime movie's way done better, simply because of how much of a menace Bison is in the movie, and how much of a menace everybody else can be. And you have Ken and Ryu at the center of it all. Really well done. If you ever, it used to air all the time on the Sci-Fi Channel in the 90s. Really, really good. You can own it on DVD as well. Go check them both out just for a conversation standpoint, because here's what I'll give the live action. The one-liners are funny as fuck. But not Jean-Claude Damme's best movie is Street Fighter, but I would say Cyborg is his best.
He hit between Bloodsport and Cyborg. He did production of Private Lives by Noel Coward, and I think he really worked that very crisp, clean delivery, and that helped a lot. He was with Lauren Tews, is that Tews from Love Boat, Julia Cruz director, and they took over from Burton and Taylor on Broadway, and then they were very good.
What's you guys' favorite scene in the movie Circle of Iron? Butch?
I do have
It's Christopher Lee. It's going to be Christopher Lee.
Oh, but that would be number 2. I do have some feedback from the wife. She wanted me to throw this in regarding the scene where Tara shows up. She just looked at me and goes, "Boobies are a powerful weapon." Favorite scene?
Only a wife can say that.
Going back to Sir Christopher Lee, yes. It is the scene he's in, but it's the fact that, like we just said, they don't have to fight. And if they had, in my opinion, it would have. It goes against the rest of the whole movie. So, and like Patrick said, Sir Christopher Lee is just like, he's like the most common sense person in the whole film. And he's like,
well, he's also trying to soft soap this so he can get out of this gig. Seriously, because if Cord takes over, he can finally clock out.
Exactly. He's like, no. You should take over. And Court, this is like the one time Court's
We have a
like,
health plan,
I'm out of here.
401k.
Is my favorite scene. But before we move on, I'm sorry to whoever I just cut off. My favorite line in the whole damn film is, "It's hard to kill a horse with a flute." That I post it on Facebook and just share that wisdom with everyone.
That's a Catherine the
I
Great.
will. Go ahead, Patrick. What's your favorite scene? Sorry.
Gosh, my favorite scene. I like so many of them in the movie. I would agree with Butch. It's the Christopher Lee. It's the Christopher Lee two-hander. It's magical. It's marvelous.
Gordon, what's your favorite scene?
I think my favorite. I'd have to say the Christopher Lee scene, because it's not your traditional, okay, big fight at the end. And even after that, it subverts itself, because you think it's going one way, but it goes another way.
It's reversal of expectation.
Yeah. My second favorite scene, I think, would be the caravan, only because those are some of the worst belly dancers I've ever seen. And I've actually seen people, I know people who perform belly dance live. And I'm not going any further because they might be watching and I could get myself in serious trouble.
If you needed a lawyer, you could get Melvin belly dance.
I've seen strippers dance better. Anyway, so
you're not too far from the truth, Joel. I'm just going to leave that there.
You're going to be
although I hope your wife did not hear you mention strippers.
She knows about it. So anyway, so
what's your favorite scene, Joel?
Actually, not so much a scene. I love the dialogue with Jeff Cooper and David Carradine when David Carradine is a blind character in this movie. When David Carradine, actually, there is a scene where David Carradine's character hits a kid, and Jeff Cooper's character Cord is questioning him, why this, and he just like the book, he comes to his own realization. So before the book realization, he comes to his own realization. You've been through here before, and I love that. You're right. This isn't a martial arts movie in every sense of the word. Though it has martial arts in it, it's more of an enlightenment movie. It's about really, in many ways, there's a movie called Spirited Away that's about a girl who's a brat
great movie
and has to grow up. Jeff Cooper's character, Cord, he can be bratish in this movie, but not as bad as that little girl was. But with this movie, it is about growing up and finding yourself, enlightening.
It's about the blonde leading the blind.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
What
do you
It's about the friends we meet along the way.
What do you guys give this 1 out of 10?
That's a really interesting question, because you have to almost wonder by what criteria. It's such an unusual movie. I think I have to give it a triangle of pork chops. If I'm looking at a spectrum like that, it's purple. I mean, like as a great piece of cinema, like a 3 or a 4. As Circle of Iron, it's the best damn Circle of Iron out there, and it does certain things differently and better than a lot of other films. It's kind of like, I put it up with Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe, which, what the hell movie is that? It's all sorts of films. So yeah, as the oeuvre of Richard Moore is not going to be driving USC's curriculum anytime soon. Doesn't make it a bad movie.
Butch?
Yeah, I think Patrick's right. This film is all over the place. On your 1 to 10 scale, I'd probably give it a 7. Is it a great film? No. Is it damn fun to sit and watch? Yeah. Might you even learn something? Yeah. So there's a term that I use. I call them Saturday afternoon movies. John Carpenter makes a lot. they're just fun to sit down and watch. Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll think. It's not Shakespeare, but it's also not redneck zombies. So I just give it a 7, and say, if what we've said sounds like something you might be interested in, check it out. If you want to watch lots of fights, go see a Chuck Norris movie from around the same time period.
It's a great movie to put on a double feature, though, with a really hardcore beat the shit out of a martial arts movie, or as the middle film in a triple feature, because it has enough of that, but it's the right texture. It's it's kind of it lets you catch your breath for the octagon or whatever is going to follow.
You know what movie this needs to be on a double bill with? No Retreat, No Surrender. Anyway,
Gordon, what do you give it?
Let's see.
I gave it a 3.
Well, my score is going to be along with Butch's. I'm going to give it a 7 because it is kind of a watch on a Sunday afternoon when you're bored and you get a little you get something out of it. It's not perfect. It's not an instant classic. It's like if I had to choose between watching Circle of Iron and watching the Penn episode of Dark Shadows 3 times in a row, I'm going to choose this. Of course, if I had to choose between, say, rubbing a cheese grater against my forehead and watching the Penn episode of Dark Shadows 3 times in a row, it's grating time. So probably not much of a comparison.
What about you, Joel?
There is no Joel here right now. Please leave a message after the beep. He'll get back to you. No. I really enjoyed the scenery. Again, we talked a lot about desert porn in our westerns and how the scenery looks really good. The scenery is really amazing in this movie. The acting, Jeff Cooper's not the greatest, but David Carradine does a hell of a job. And
he's really good.
Where Cooper is sort of underappreciated in this movie is he nails his dialogue. And I know that's might not mean much to some, but it means a lot to me because I'm not the greatest reader in the world. With this movie, I enjoyed it from start to finish, even the kooky end. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. It's really enjoyable to watch, and it's a lot of fun. It's a movie you could literally watch with your family, and I did. I watched it with my 2 kids, and my daughter's like, why is that guy dressed like a cat? But it's just fun to watch. You're right. It's a double bill you could put up with a more serious beat 'em up or a more serious martial arts movie. I said No Retreat, No Surrender. I'd more likely put it on the double bill with Bloodsport. So
the triple feature I would do. Yeah. I would do the Big Brawl from this era. I do the Big Brawl, Circle of Iron, and then finish with the Octagon.
Yeah.
You ever seen Big Brawl? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, but I've seen Octagon.
It's the best Jose Ferrer, Jackie Chan aborted wedding to former porn star movie I have ever seen.
And it's a very narrow genre, just so you kids know.
It's all where you look. Where you want.
Well, here's a triple bill for you. Game of Death, which is a Bruce Lee movie.
Sure.
I would put obviously the movie we're just discussing, Circle of Iron, would be on there, and Bloodsport. I'd probably finish it with Bloodsport. More serious that movie. But guys, what's Butch? What's your top three Billy?
I'm going to go a little oddball. Enter the Dragon.
Yeah.
Circle of Iron. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
That's a great combination of movies.
Gordon?
Let's see. I'm just trying to think of other. I would do this movie. I'd probably and I would probably have to find. I'd probably find two. I'd probably do something like, I'm trying to think of a short Kurosawa movie, maybe something like King Blood, even though that's like 3 hours long.
Now Sanjuro and Yojimbo were both short.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen either of them. That's why.
Oh man, those are the Man with No Name, movies. Yeah, they're really good.
Mm-hmm. And then let's see, what would I do for my third movie? I'll just throw in Touch of Evil, just for the hell of it.
Touch of Evil. Yeah, I would do Serbian film, Circle of and Sallow. That's
and I would stay away from that particular film festival.
God. Can you imagine?
I don't think I'm old enough to go to that festival.
I used to show Sallow and Serbian film on a double feature. Yeah. It's back when they were making chocolate Twinkies, and I timed presenting them to guests just perfectly. Good night.
Good night.
And here's a suggestion for you kids. If you take Tootsie Rolls and you flatten them and you let them sit in the sun for a while, you take them, put them in a box, send them to Patrick. See if he notices.
Oh, Lord. Sweet midgets.
Too long.
Is there anything you guys want to add about Circle of Fire?
I'm done. It's been a long week. I'm tired.
It's on Tubi. Watch it.
Yeah, it's on Tubi.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah. It does. It's on Tubi for free. That's where I watched it. Guys, tomorrow night, me and Butch are doing Cahill U.S. Marshal. When do you guys want to do Jaws?
ASAP, whenever you like.
Butch, Gordon?
Yeah, I'll sit out the Jaws one. It's not that I don't like it. I just kind of want to take a little break. Not really in a Jaws mood right now. Oh, Patrick, they allow you to have sharp objects now? I thought
in Tennessee you're required.
Yeah, I have no problem sitting that one out. You three have a fun time.
How about a couple of weeks?
Okay. All right. In a couple of weeks we'll do Jaws. So tomorrow night, Cahill U.S. Marshal for me and Butch. Sunday, I'll see you and Gordon for episode 1000 of Dark Shadows. Guys, first of all, thank you all so much. Links to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page, links to Dark Shadows Daybook Unbound, written by Patrick McCray. Butch, is there any link you need me sent?
Buy the daybook, and then buy the daybook too, and then go to Gordon's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Buy Gordon and Patrick stuff, or we're just gonna send you to them, or send them to you, or vice versa. Whichever.
Rose.
You guys have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night, Gordon.